on the granite, Keen, but originally in
had
the
an
writing
E on the
I
end.
found it was Keene. So there's controversy over how it's spelled.
Yeah, I think it's Keen in South River too.
George Bryant,
Yeah.
yeah. Bellows, oh yeah. Banton, those are all the old names, aren't they?
Yeah.
We got to get this
Oh,
preserved.
I
I don't know
know.
how they do it, but the museum knows how to preserve them so that, because this is, look how brittle it is.
I liked in the back of it, it told about staying at the dormitory. Was
Does it?
good.
Bertha Bryant, Colby College. Look
We're
at
not
that.
going to get to your questions.
No, Winifred Dodge. She
Yeah.
lived in my house.
Did she?
That was the Dodge
Oh,
house.
I've heard that before.
Yeah. She
Yes.
was, and
Yes.
she was an organist, and so they bought the organ at the
Yeah.
church for her to play.
Really?
You know how it was like
Yeah.
their own ownership. But yeah, Winifred Dodge.
I didn't know that.
I had met her. She came back to visit at our house before she died.
Great.
And this is fascinating. Look at that.
Yeah.
Oh, a list of all the students. Ingraham, Bradstreet, yeah, Busher. My mother she would know all these,
Sure.
or a lot of them. She wouldn't know all of them, but I took this down, and I have a group of these that are later on. I took them down to the nursing home where she is, and I would read the names, and take her a while, but eventually she could make a connection,
Yeah.
and she would tell me a little bit about it.
About that. Them and
Oh, this is fascinating,
Yeah.
Viola. I'm glad you got
Yeah.
that. Oh, and this is this the first Mount View?
Mm-hmm.
This is the first Mount View, the dedication of it.
Yeah. Open
You know
house.
there was another Mount View.
Yes. Yeah, my stepdad went to the other Mount View. And
Oh.
I have family members who also attended the other Mount View.
Oh, Mount View School dedication. I've never even seen these, celebrating the future. And this is the present one,
Yes.
isn't it? Oh,
But that old one is,
that is really something else. Yeah, there's some way they'll put that like in plastic or something.
yeah.
They can preserve the paper. It's so old.
Do you do that? Preserve papers? No.
Not yet.
Not yet. We can probably find a way how to do it though.
Yes, and
They
I
probably
have,
wouldn't want us doing
I
it.
have a book that's about Smithton Cemetery where Freedom's first settler is, and it's come apart, and I need to have it rebound, and I thought maybe people could give me some names of people who do that.
I did find some people.
You can? Good.
My dad started as the archivist
Mm-hmm.
in the Maine State Museum.
Mm-hmm.
That was back in 1983 or 4 when he first got that job. And he still works with the Bassaboro Historical Society. He works with the Windsor Historical Society.
wow.
He lives right in Weeks Mills. So
Wow.
it's not like, and so if he doesn't know how to do things like that, then he knows everybody. He knows a lot of people in the archives building in Augusta, but it's part of the library.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, we can definitely make some connections
Mm.
and see if we can't see who can do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
That would be very helpful. This is 1909 too.
Yeah.
See both
That's
these
the
things.
same as
yeah,
yeah, that's
same
right.
year.
I read that on the
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah.
annual catalog. So they did it every year, an
Yeah.
announcement. But I bet there aren't many around. Oh, that's
That was
wonderful.
pretty rough.
That's wonderful. You have that, Viola.
As I told Viola as we were coming in Myrick, Viola and I belonged to Freedom Historical Society for quite a while. And we had several living history events, but we were on the other end, like what you're doing. And we invited people from the town in to share the history of freedom. So it's a little nerving to be on this side of the table.
Yeah.
Well, it's progress.
Don't have this progress. I suppose so.
Were those recorded? Are they?
I don't know where they are.
Yes,
Are
they
they
were.
filmed?
Some
recorded.
of them were filmed,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
like this.
Wow.
Um,
Are they over in
they're
the
in.
files over
They,
there?
they should
It
be in
must
my
be.
record books that I kept.
Yeah.
But
Lots
there is-
of pictures.
I couldn't get in today. I was going to bring the box on Freedom Academy, but they're not open on Fridays.
Well, that's right, yeah.
And I didn't know if you still had a key.
I have
or
the
not.
key,
You do?
I don't have the key to the main building, I have the key to the annex where they
That's
are,
what
so
I
we can
need.
get in there, yeah. You have to put up with us.
This
This is wonderful.
Yeah,
This
this
isn't
is absolutely wonderful. I love hearing the rambling and like all the information. It's fascinating to see like something start as one thing and then blossom
Ends
into
up
this
as
one
another.
beautiful thing. You know?
Yeah.
Well, these two ladies really did the Historical Society. They were the Historical Society for
yeah.
a long time.
We had several other people who were very
Yeah, that's what I was
attentive
gonna
to
say.
Drew Fales and
Drew,
and,
yeah.
and Jim Waterman started with us, and several others, and kept it going for quite a while.
But you guys were the heads of it. I was telling somebody yesterday that stopped in the house. I told him we were going to be doing this, and I said I can remember I was down at the Grange Hall at a dinner, and you were waiting on tables. It was
Mhm.
back quite a ways
Yeah.
before we moved back here, but we were home for the summer or something.
Yeah.
And I remember you came up behind me and put your hand on my shoulder, and you said, "When are you coming home? I've got a job for you."
And he was treasurer of the
It was
Historical
treasurer.
Society.
Oh dear.
We needed
I
someone.
should have taken that as a warning. Stayed away.
Well, since then, he's become president of the Historical Society for quite a while, and written all the grants that have been needed and so forth.
Mm.
And I was more than glad to give that job to somebody as secretary.
Oh, yeah. It's a lot of work, and we have so few people.
Mm.
You know, it's the same with all the towns that we hear. There's not a lot of interest in history, but there are a few who are very interested, and thank God, and they're the ones that are keeping it going. And our Historical Society right now we have a couple of new members over the last couple of years, and now there's a new president, Wilson Hess, and thank God, who are taking over and doing a lot, and they're helping write some grants because I haven't, well, this last year I've been out with cancer, so I haven't done anything, but they're beginning to help, and that's what we need. We have to have that, and have some younger people. But we're very appreciative of what you folks are doing and willing to do, because it's stuff we couldn't do. We couldn't get done. We don't have the resources to do that. And I love having the school involved, you know,
Yes,
because
it's a good idea.
it's a living history lesson for you
Yeah.
Yeah.
in local history.
I think probably in your library you still have a book on Freedom's history that Viola's mother did.
Yeah.
It's about this size,
Little book.
Hmm.
but it has a lot of information in it.
What was your mother's name?
Florence Overlock.
Florence
Yeah, Overlock.
Overlock.
And
Yeah.
who else did it, you mean?
No, I just was
Viola
trying to.
helped her.
I try to keep the.
Dan Clark and
Oh.
who else? I don't know. Lorraine, of course.
Hmm.
There was quite a few of us. And took a lot to do that book.
Oh my
Okay,
goodness.
how long have I lived in freedom?
Well, that's what I was wondering. Do we get? I've been thinking about that.
Forever?
Yeah. She and I have lived in Myrick too, for that matter, for its beginnings. I was born in Freedom, South Freedom,
What year?
1941.
41. Yeah,
Mhm.
I was born in 43. I didn't remember.
Viola was born before then. Was it in Freedom? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Or Montville, Freedom.
Freedom.
Yeah. So I've lived there all my life except for 4 years of college and 2 of teaching in another town. Then I came back to SAD 3 to teach for 36 years. And
36, wow.
Viola has married and lived there all her life,
Yeah,
except for a year or 2 in Germany with her husband.
chased my husband around in the army.
Hmm.
But that was a short thing. It's all my life in freedom.
Hmm. Well, I was here until I was born in Belfast, actually, in the city.
the big
But-
city.
Yeah. But I was here until I graduated from Unity Freedom High School in 71. Is that right? 71? Yes. And I left to go to college, and I was away for 50 years. But college and then jobs and stuff. And
I think maybe I graduated from Unifree in 1960.
oh, it's 60,
So it must be-
61.
It must be 61 for you.
I only missed it by 10 years. It was 61, that's right.
Yeah.
Were you Unity Freedom?
Yeah,
Yep.
that goes on to this last question on this page. When the academy burned,
Okay.
we were all sent over there to go to school with the Unity students at Unity High School.
I was a freshman.
You were a freshman, I was a sophomore.
Oh, you were a sophomore. Okay, I knew you were ahead of me, but I didn't know how much. Yeah, we went over there and finished out that year
And then we went for,
with Unity.
Years
Then they
after that.
combined them.
then the schools were combined.
Yeah, that was an experience and a half going over there. Boy,
So do you want these questions in order?
We can go out of order.
I think it did, but that's okay. Good.
when are you going to film?
Oh,
we're
we've
filming
been
for-
going.
Oh, you
Oh,
are.
you
We're
are?
filming for 17 minutes.
Oh,
Because we just find it fascinating how you guys like. develop
Well, you
all
can
this
ask us questions and keep us in order.
yeah.
My goodness, we've roamed around.
But now that we're on the subject of when did the academy close, it burned
Oh,
in 1958, January of 1958.
do they
58.
know why it burned?
Is that right?
58, yeah,
Yeah.
it was 58, yeah.
And Myrick lived right across the road from the academy.
I lived right across the street,
Still
so.
does.
uh,
And so students were there, and everybody got out. And
But
the fire trucks were housed under the school in
that's
the
what I was going to
basement.
say. It was in the basement of the school.
And they
It's
couldn't
still-
get them out.
The battery was flat
Yeah.
on the fire truck, so they had to push it out by hand. But fire departments came from other towns, but it was too far gone
And we
then.
stood there and watched it burn.
Yeah.
What caused it to go?
It's to be determined.
Yeah.
I never heard. I don't think it was
No.
ever known exactly. I think it started down in the furnace room in the
Yeah.
coal bin.
right.
Used to burn coal,
Mm-hmm.
and Fred Drake was the janitor then, I remember. But it says, what was it like going to the academy? I loved it. It was wonderful. There were, in my class, in the freshman class, there were 25 students.
I don't know how many we had.
Yeah,
There were
because
about that for my class, I think, too.
I think
somewhere
that's
up
an
to
average
30.
size.
It never got beyond 30, I don't believe, for any class back then.
When we went to Unity, it doubled, and because I ended up with 49 graduating from Unity Freedom, which was a big class in those days.
Yeah.
But
Well,
Yeah.
the reason I attended Freedom Academy was because the town of Freedom sent their students there. We
That-
didn't have any other high school. And, of course, students from other towns came to Freedom Academy, Montville, Knox, Thorndike. And so,
it was the first secondary school in this part of Maine. Originally, the old academy was started in 1837, and if you think about it, that was only
that burned also.
only 17 years after Maine became a state. And back in those days, there was no public education. There were no public schools. There were several academies in western and southern Maine, Kent School and several down there, but there was nothing in Belfast and nothing in the area at all. So Freedom had students that came from a lot of different towns. My grandfather came there from Morrill, and that's how we got to our farm. And they had built a dormitory, so there were residential students who lived there, and there were others who walked,
Right.
and by horse from some of the little towns. They would come with their wagons, and they had I don't know what they called it, but it was a kind of a stable out back of the church there that they would put their horses and wagons up there and leave them for the day while they're at classes, and then go home in the afternoon and night.
And the dormitory was for women. It had 3 floors, a huge building. My father roomed at the Bartlett House in Freedom when he was in high school. And a funny little note on that was that when people got looking the dormitory over years after it had passed as being a dormitory, my father's initials could be found in the walls in the dormitory. So we always sort of kidded him about that a little bit.
Well, I heard a story from my grandmother that she worked there for a while as, I don't know what they called it, but she was sort of like the in charge of the student, something like that, yeah. I don't think she did very long, but she did for a while, and she said it was for women. However, on the 4th floor in the attic, there used to be boys sometimes.
Yeah, it sort of says that in here.
Oh, is it?
It does.
Is it?
It tells about what the girls were supposed to stay
Yeah.
on their own floor.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't find anything right off, but anyway, it tells all about the rooms they had available and the courses they took. But anyway, so that's off the paper you've got questions on. Are you still in contact with your friends?
Yeah.
I do have one that when she was calling me and I was calling her, and she said, my oldest school friend,
Which is true.
Dottie.
But you may have been her oldest school
Dottie
friend.
Chase?
Yeah,
Oh, really?
yeah. And she and I were together in a class. Are we all done?
That's just the class bell from when it's a regular school day.
Okay. No, Dottie is the main one that, but now since, recently she's gone to a assisted living. But I have talked with her out there, but I intend to call her again this weekend. I can remember it.
What class were you, Viola?
50, gosh, I don't know.
In the 50s? One of the...
Yeah,
Yeah, she was in the
53.
50.
50,
Huh.
yeah,
Yeah.
53, 52, yeah.
My mother was 42. My father must have been 40, I think.
Yeah.
Or 39. 30, he was 39. And she was 42 because I was born in 43. That's
Yeah.
how I figure it. And back it up.
Yeah.
Well, we went to the academy because that was the school. There was no public school in Freedom anyway, or Knox, or Montville,
There
or
was-
Thorndike.
And when I went to the academy, there was no bus. You got to ride with your mother or your father, however it worked. There was no bus line. Soon after there was. I can't remember just when, but do you remember?
Well, I started academy in 1956,
And they had a bus, yeah.
and the buses were running then, yes. And Bobby Knowlton drove my bus.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Well, I went to the academy. It was right across the street, and so I remember when they would have plays. Sometimes they did a lot of drama and stuff, but the students would come across and ask if they could borrow things out of our house to furnish the play for the sets for the play. I remember they would come and take pictures and mirrors and chairs and stuff because they needed it for the
Yeah.
to furnish the stage, and
Couldn't have been more convenient.
I know. my grandmother, who she was very, very active and loved it. She was active in the Alumni Association too, and she was an athlete herself. She played tennis when back in those days they had a tennis team. My grandfather played football. They had a football team way back then. It was a whole different kind of sport, but they did. And when I was a little boy going to Freedom Grammar School, just two buildings over, she didn't miss a basketball game. We went to all the basketball games, and that's one of my favorite memories is going to those because they would be packed, and Freedom usually had a good team.
Yes,
And
they went to the playoffs many times.
yeah, and after they built the new Freedom Academy, you know, our gym was one of the best ones around with a hardwood floor, and they kept it so nice there, I remember. So very fond memories of that. And the Alumni Association used to be very active, and grandmother was involved in that too, more than I remember my mother. But one of the ladies who was the head of it was Mrs. Small, and Mrs. Small was Edith Williams Small, was Dr. Small's wife, and she was the first woman to serve on the Governor's Executive Council in Maine. My father used to call her Madam Small. It was sort of a joke, but she was very kind of distinguished and that. And one of the stories I love to tell is at an alumni reunion, they asked everybody to bring refreshments and stuff, and my grandmother was a wonderful cook. She made this big chocolate cake with chocolate frosting, I remember, and took it, and she cut the pieces and everything, and she was very indignant because Madam Small had come by the table and said to her, "Avis, cut the cake in smaller pieces. Nobody wants a great hunk of cake." She was cutting it like on the farm. That's the way we served it.
When you do things family style.
Yeah. But the academy was really the cultural center of the town, of the area, really.
The whole area.
They had an
Right.
orchestra, and
It's like Mount View is the
Yeah.
center for many towns. The academy was the same.
yeah, it was. And that's a part of our restoration of Keene Hall, which is the only remaining building of the academy. A part of the idea of that is to restore some of the meaning of the cultural awareness and history and center so that that can be preserved for other generations. So students like you could go there and do research and the archives and have presentations in that. So, well, the town certainly has changed a lot.
Yes.
I was just looking at that question.
Huge changes, yeah.
It used to be a very busy, active mill town. It had wood mills, it had canning factories. People earned their livings, who lived in town earned their livings in town. A lot of them are for extra money. And then when those industries disappeared, the makeup of the town disappeared too.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there were at least 3 mills. There used to be. Grist mill, and then one became a wood mill, and there are 2 buildings still left. The where the Lost Kitchen is, the mill at Freedom Falls, that was originally a grist mill, and then it's changed to a wood mill. During my time, it was wood. It was Freedom Lumber Company.
And Viola's mother worked there.
Your mother worked at the lumber
Yeah.
company? Yeah.
They made dowels.
Yep.
She did the sanding of them somehow,
Yeah.
shaping them, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, she and Glennis.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the reason she worked there was to give me a ride back and forth to school. One of the reasons.
Sure. Yeah.
One of the reasons she worked there. 'Cause
Did the railroad come through? Did any narrow gauge or
No.
any kind
No.
of rail system?
The
No.
nearest narrow gauge was Thorndike.
Thorndike.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have in my little museum that I have at the farm there, I have the sleigh that was used to bring passengers and the mail from the train in Thorndike in the wintertime when there was no transport. It brought that to Freedom, so if you wanted to go to Boston or New York or any place, you could take the sleigh over to Thorndike and get the train and take that to Augusta and go on. But
Or Belfast with the schooners down.
you could take it either way, yeah. The train went Belfast to Moosehead Lake. It never went to Moosehead Lake. It never got that far, but that was the plan. Belfast and Moosehead Lake Railroad. That's the one that still is operating for, you can take rides out of Thorndike
Yeah.
in the summer, or Unity, I
Yeah.
think. So, no, the decline of the mills and the factory.
In the schools.
We had a canning factory that was a big part of the economy in our town for many years.
And other towns.
Yeah, and that was built by local people who put in money, contributed money and labor to build the factory, and it was run as Monmouth Canning Company. It was owned by a company out of Portland for a long time, and eventually went in decline, and that was closed and torn down, and now the town is trying to find a use for that property because they own it. I don't know what they're going to come up with. But
Build a corn factory.
yeah,
String beans.
that's right. Yeah, I used to grow. My father would give me 2 acres of field to grow beans on,
Yeah.
and that's how I got my money for college, was by growing the beans and cultivating them and picking them and taking them down to the factory and selling them.
Yeah.
It was a good opportunity for a
Yeah,
lot of young
It was
people.
a good summer job for many teenagers too.
Oh, yeah. My mom
To
worked
be able
there.
to afford to go to high school and.
Yeah,
and
yeah. Yeah. That was a big change
Do you
took
miss
place.
the old times?
What's that?
Do you miss the old times?
Sure,
Oh, yeah.
some. Yeah.
Yeah.
My Aunt Virginia, our Aunt Virginia, lives on the West Coast,
Mhm.
and she's almost 90. And she calls frequently, especially to Viola, because Viola remembers the old times in Freedom Village. And we both grew up in South Freedom, so it was sort of a treat to get to Freedom Village.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we have conversations about the buildings that used to be there and where they were located and who owned what business. And we've been over and over that this past winter with her. So it's nice to go down memory lane like that. Problem is, I don't have a great memory because I didn't get to Freedom Village all that often.
You have as many memories as I'm able to remember as well as I. I know you do. But Virginia has a lot of questions that and answers that she remembers, boy.
Well, my mom is in a nursing home now, and she'll be 99 June 14th. And I visit her, like I took her some of these old bulletins and things, and she knows a lot of the families and the names. And her long-term memory is pretty good. And she can come up with stories about those. Don't ask her what she had for breakfast or when the last time somebody visited was, but no, we had, in my family, there were, that I know of, 4 generations that went to the academy. And my grandfather, who graduated in 1909, and then his mother went there before. And I don't have any records of that, but they lived up on Ayers Hill, Ayers Ridge.
Air Ridge.
Yeah, I don't have much information about that branch of the family, but my mother lived right in the village. She was a Tyler, one of 6 girls. They all went to the academy, and lots of stories about that, of course. My grandfather he used to go over to the mill and tend the boiler. He had that job at night and weekends when they weren't running. So.
And my grandmother had the job of every Sunday morning going to the church and starting the furnace.
Well, she did it at the Grange Hall also.
She did that
Yeah.
at the Grange Hall
Yeah.
too.
On Grange nights.
She had many odd jobs, and that was one
Oh, a
of them.
lot of
That when you had, there was a wood furnace there?
Yeah, I think
wood
it must have
stove?
been, yeah,
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
remember that, but.
yeah.
Hmm.
Grandma used to go,
Another thing Freedom
to-
had that, of course, it doesn't have now, and probably nobody has ever heard of it, is a switchboard. The telephone company was operating right in town. When you rung the phone, you would give it a crank, call Central. Central was where the switchboard was, and she would connect you.
Marie Mahurin?
I think so, to
Marie?
begin with.
Herman
yeah.
Marie Mahurin?
And that was located in one of the houses on High Street. It wasn't a business as such, it was in a home. And now the historical group has the old switchboard. They're storing it.
and Myrick worked there, so he knows how to run
He
the
knows how to
switch.
run the switchboard.
When I was in junior high, imagine that, the couple, it wasn't the Mahurins, it's later on, I think it was Littlefield or somebody, were running it, and they hired me, they wanted to go out someplace, and they had a baby, so they hired me to babysit and tend the switchboard. This was junior high, and so I did. It was a lot of fun to do that. But my favorite story about the switchboard is before that, when I was even younger, and there would be, if there was a very long ring, just a long steady ring, it meant there was a fire somewhere, because that's the only way they had of contacting people. People would pick up their phone and they would tell them where the fire was and where they needed help. Well, one day, I remember there was a long, long ring, and my grandmother picked it up, the phone, and it said, Effie Fly is having a sale at her dry goods store. Effie Fly ran a dry goods store where she sold all kinds of things, but she had...
She knew how to get people's
She
attention.
knew how to, that's how she was advertising. My grandmother was quite indignant about it, because she
I
had
would
taken
think
advantage
so.
of the fire call.
I would have been too.
Yeah. Oh dear. And talking about the way it was at noontime, the boys, at least the boys, maybe some women too, I don't know, but the boys would go down to Fred Fly's barbershop during noon hour on their lunch break and play pool. There were 2 pool tables down there, and I can remember that because I used to go down with my grandfather when he got his hair cut and shave, and they'd buy me a 6-penny bottle of orange soda, and there was a big sign up on the wall that said, "Absolutely no gambling tolerated,"
Right.
because the boys used to gamble every noon
Yeah.
and play pool.
Yeah.
In fact, we've got in our archives of the Historical Society, we've got when they tore down Dottie's house, that was Fred Fly's house.
Yes.
And in the attic, the guy that tore it down found some papers.
Yeah.
And we have the letter when he was ordering new felts for the pool tables.
Oh, really?
Yep, and the sample of the felt that they put on the pool table.
They
So
were. That was.
someday that should be in an exhibit.
Yes, it should.
I'd like to have a pool table in the basement of Keene Hall. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah. Why not?
Call it Fred Fly's basement.
Why not?
It's part of history.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's a big part of
Harold
it.
was in school when they, one of the academies, what year would that have been? And the kids had to go to different places to go to school. And so they went upstairs over the Fred Fly barber shop and the pool table.
That was
Oh,
when
that-
the first academy burned, wasn't
The
it?
first.
When they were
yes.
building the new one? While
Yeah.
they were building
Yeah.
the new one, yeah.
And Virginia says some of the girls went to different homes.
Oh,
If it was a cooking class, you went over to, I can't remember what she told me, and if it was a sewing class, they went to another home. But it
wow.
was all,
Dispersed within the community.
yeah.
Early version of
They
homeschooling.
Yeah.
They kept them going to school,
Yeah.
except for the barber shop downstairs and the pool table.
The 2 academies burned within 10 years of each other. So, it's-
Well, I remember I went to Freedom Grammar School, which was the 2-room school. I think my father was the first, I think he was the first class to start there in the 30s. That would have been sometime in the 30s when they built that two-room school. And I went there through all 8 grades. And we had a wood stove in the beginning and an outhouse connected to it. And then they put in Knowlton sold oil burners. Do you remember Knowlton's garage?
Oh,
He
yes.
sold oil burners.
Oh,
They
yes.
put in an oil stove in each room, the big room and the little room. The big room was, I think, 5 through 8, and the little room was kindergarten through 4 or something. And one time in the winter, the oil burner blew up, and there was soot everywhere. It covered everything. And so they had to close the school, and that's when they did some renovation and actually put in running water and flush toilets. And during that time, I went down to the Grange Hall to school.
Yeah?
They had some of us upstairs and some of us
I
downstairs.
think when Harold was going, some were going there
Yeah,
too.
yeah,
I forgot about the Grange-O.
yeah, I remember going there.
But they did at the
Well,
barber shop.
South Freedom had its replica of this elementary school you just described. 2 rooms.
Same thing.
The outhouses were attached on the back.
Yeah.
They were beautiful inside. They had this beautiful wood, walls and floors, and the partition between the 2 rooms folded, so you could open it up into one big school room if you were having a play or something like that. The outhouse stories that some people can tell are probably not too well to pass on, but there were some pranksters who did various things with the outhouse. And our stove was a big pot-bellied stove that reached, 2/3 the way to the ceiling, and took wood. And the teacher, Edith Ward, was the teacher, the janitor, and the furnace person,
Yeah.
wood person. And she did everything, which amazed me.
Mm.
And I used to help her teach the little kids. That was fun.
What was that? What was the teacher's name?
Edith Ward. Yes, she taught at the other Mount View also.
Yeah.
The last 2 or 3 years were there. But that school closed when I went there from kindergarten through 7th grade. And then they decided to close it. Evidently, maybe not enough students to make it worthwhile or something. We were shipped to Albion, where I spent my 8th grade, and then from there to the academy afterwards. But
Mm.
we did have some community functions there after it was closed, once or twice, like a box social or 2,
Mm.
which was nice. And of course, you've never heard of a box social, probably. Tell them about box socials.
Go ahead.
Viola and I sort of reinvented the box social when we were in charge of the Historical Society at the Grange Hall. We did it at the Grange Hall, and what it amounts to is the ladies make up a box or a basket with food in it, and decorate it, and make it very appealing, and then the gentlemen bid on them without supposedly knowing whose box belonged to, which box belonged to which lady. Supposedly, they didn't know. Sometimes that was true, and sometimes it wasn't. And then the funds were used for the school, or like for us for the Grange, or the Historical Society, and so we had 2 events like that. First one was a little wild. The second one was very mild.
Yep.
Okay, so I gotta ask, what was wild? What was your version of wild?
Well, the bidding.
The bidding.
The
What- Do
bidding.
you remember what the
Sometimes
numbers
they
got
got,
up
well, one gentleman might know that whose box he was bidding on, and the other one too, and they would keep escalating, the bid. It went quite high sometimes for
You're
the amount
actually-
of food.
You're actually buying your date, is what you were doing.
Yes.
That's true too. And then afterwards, the lady sat with the gentleman who bought the box.
Yeah.
So they were willing to spend quite a lot of money at times. when they really didn't have any money to spend.
Yeah.
I can remember the morning after the first academy burned. What year was that?
10 years before the other one.
10 years.
Before ours.
So 48 would it have been?
58. 58, 48. Right?
48?
Yeah.
I would have been
Somewhere
5
in there.
years old. I remember waking up in the morning and because we lived right across the street, it had burned at night and I wasn't awake. And I looked out on the front lawn, and our lawn was filled with things they had salvaged out of the academy. There were, the big old pictures I remember, and mirrors and desks and things were standing against the trees out there. It was a weird thing to see. But at 5 years old, it was.
Right.
We have one thing that I know that came out of that original academy, and it's a wooden filing cabinet that was saved. Evidently, they got that out of the office and must have gotten it out of the second one too, I guess. But Charlie Cosgrove's son had it when they cleaned out his house, and he brought it up, and we have it now. It's up in the Old Town Meeting House. So we have one thing out of there, but.
I don't know that we have anything out of the second Freedom
don't
Academy,
know
do we?
We saved some of the trophies. We went
You
in,
did.
we broke the window, and there was a trophy cabinet lining the whole first hallway. And I remember breaking some of the glass out of that and getting some of our athletic trophies because we had a lot. And frankly, I don't know what happened to them. Judge Mary was the last person I knew that had them or was taking care of them. And he was the assistant principal, and he died, so I don't know. I haven't tracked him down, but I don't know if they exist anywhere or not.
But there was something else saved. As I've heard stories about it, I wasn't there. I was away at the time, but didn't you have a story about saving something that belonged to Lorraine?
Oh, he doesn't
Oh.
probably remember it.
Oh, a
but
cheerleading.
I had my cheerleading outfit in a suitcase.
That's right.
And the room, I think we were having study hall, and we were in, the later academy had windows facing the front, facing the road. And there were rooms on either side of the hallway, and a coat room connecting to one of those rooms, the one I was in. I think we were having a study hall, and it was Dr. Ross, I can't remember his
Yeah.
first name, who was in charge. He was sitting behind the desk, and the desk, behind the desk was the wall to the cloakroom. And Sonny McKenney, do you remember him?
Yeah, I do.
He was the first one to notice smoke, and it was rising right up behind Dr. Ross's chair,
Oh.
right where that cloakroom was. The furnace was evidently underneath. And he said, he just said to Dr. Ross, look, no. And I remember Dr. Ross getting up and disappearing. He just up and out, not a word. And then it was Sonny who said, we're getting out of here. And we did. And evidently, some students, as they went through the cloakroom, took stuff out of it, threw it out onto the front lawn. And one of them was that suitcase.
Wow.
And it ended up at your house.
How did that?
I don't know, but I remember the phone call saying, we think it might be yours. And it was.
Huh.
I don't know. So they saved some of the things, students' coats, things like
Yeah.
that. It was in January, so we needed our coats.
What haven't we covered? We've
Did the
roamed.
Grange have anything to do with the academy?
I like
They
said.
used it. The academy students, Virginia, my aunt, and also Harold, as far as that goes, my husband, they went down to the Grange Hall to put on plays because there was a stage. And they'd go down there and put on these wild plays. And Virginia tells about how much fun that was.
That wasn't the Grange doing that,
No, the school did it down there too.
because the academy had a stage with a
Yeah.
gym,
Well, the second one did,
the second
but
one.
the old one didn't. The
So
old
you
one-
think it was the old one?
I think it was the old
Might
one,
have
but
been the old
Virginia
one.
told about going down there and doing plays.
Hmm.
Yeah.
There was a big connection between the church and the academy because the church was right beside it, you know, and I don't think the original academy had, I'm just saying this, I really don't know it, but I don't think they had an auditorium. They may have had a big room, I don't know, but they used to use the church because that had a platform and seating and all that. And so they had the graduation activities and prize speaking and things like that there. And one of the stained glass windows in the church was given to the church by the students of Freedom Academy. It's engraved right in it, which is an interesting connection between church and state these days that you wouldn't find. But it used to be, I graduated from the church
The
there.
question, was the DAR hall moved to the academy lot? It was moved, and I was thinking maybe that's where it was moved
Can't
to,
remember how that went.
and became part of that old high school.
Became the, didn't it
know.
become the gym?
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, it did. They
Okay.
moved that. That was down in back of, well, Keene Hall, on that field
Right.
before the road went up through there.
Yeah.
Yeah, they moved it with like 8 yokes of oxen or something. There's a
Something.
picture somewhere, maybe in your
Yeah.
mother's book, I don't know, of
I
them
don't-
moving it.
I don't know if it's in the book, but seems so I've seen a card
Yeah, I've seen it too. I don't know where it
with
is.
it on there, but,
Yeah, they moved that
Um,
building all the way up across the bridge,
Yeah.
up the hill,
yeah.
beside the old academy, and
Right.
it became the gym,
Gym.
and I
That's
think
right.
the basement was like the agriculture courses and stuff.
Yeah,
I think my mother talked about that. Yeah. Huh.
how do you feel about schooling in this area now? Gee, it's mighty different.
Oh, yeah.
Big school time instead of lots of small schools.
I sort of graduated from small time to big time in my teaching career. I, of course, went to the one-room school during my elementary years, then the academy my high school years, and 4 years of college, and then 2 years in Oakland. Then when I came to District 3, I came as a person to start the remedial reading program. And that's a story in itself, because they hired this bus van, turned it into a schoolroom. And I was to go to every 6 elementary schools with it. And I was to test, teach, test again, move on to another school. Well, after 4 years of that, I said, no, this isn't working. And I took a position as a second grade teacher, and I've seen the changes like we've described here through those years. Most of them good, but I'm not saying that bigger is better. You know, just because I grew up with it not being that big, grew old with it not being that big.
There are pluses and minuses of both,
Of
you know.
everything.
I,
Mhm.
when I got out, after I went through school there, 8 years in the grammar school and then the academy, and a big advantage was the fewer number of students, you could participate in about everything. Every team needed you because they didn't have enough
Right.
students. Like in the grammar school, we couldn't have a baseball team, we didn't have enough boys, so we had to have a softball team with girls and boys. Well, that was a good thing. It was a good thing.
That's how I got my black eye.
Is it?
First one.
And, you know, you could, if they were having a play or something, they needed everybody to be in it. So even if you weren't very good, and I was never good athletically, so, but I got to play in basketball, the Unity Freedom, because they needed enough players. However, there were things like, we had no art curriculum,
Right.
nothing like this media
Right.
program. The sciences, our lab was not good at all. It was very
Right.
basic and elementary. And so it couldn't offer as much. The curriculum couldn't be as broad, and you didn't have as much choice. It was pretty much set as to what could be offered. But in terms of personal relationships, I think students got to know teachers better and more because there were fewer of both of us. And I remember when I was a freshman at Freedom Academy, Charlie Cosgrove was the principal of the academy. He visited every home in the summer before school started and got to know the families as well as the kids. And I thought he was a wonderful principal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
He
did
was,
too.
in terms of personal, he really knew the area, he knew the children, he knew.
He even transported people home from the ball games at times.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if I missed
We
the
got
bus,
stuck in the snowbank.
if I missed the bus, I could call either him or
Right.
Charlie or Bob Couturier if they hadn't left yet and ride to school with them. But those are the advantages, personal relationships and the knowledge. Whereas now I think with a bigger class and a bigger staff and all that, it's easier to fall between the cracks because you just can't know as many people and as many students. So it goes both ways. I have grandkids now who are in a small private school in Portland, and it's great for them. It's wonderful for the attention. They've grown up, they grew up in Massachusetts, living in a big school, a big city school, and they were offered a lot of courses to study, but they never really got to know the teachers or the staff very well because it was so big. And so it goes both ways. It's a both and, not an either or.
An advantage that I see of having a school like this is that you may be able to determine more about what your future will be. Like, I suppose your people will be going into this type of work in the future, communications of some sort. And we never had that opportunity to decide or to look into things like that.
And it-
I
Film-
remember the principal, Charlie Cosgrove, saying to me, I was a junior or senior, I don't know which, taking a group to Farmington College. Think you should go.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
That said it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, speaking about the film, no opportunity like filming this and all, but I still have some snapshots with my little brownie camera of Dottie and some other girls and guys. So those are really fun. And you people do the films instead of snapshots of the brownie.
you have your phone.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
Mm. Yeah, it's changed so much.
everything changed so much,
Mm.
but it's okay.
Yeah, the quality. When I served on the school board here several years ago, and one of the big struggles, and I think it still maintains, is with 11 towns in the school district now. I think there is less identity as far as the cultural center of the population. Like, nobody really owns Mount View.
Yeah.
So, do people from Brooks think of it as their center? Maybe some, but our struggle was getting people involved and getting parents and the population to come and attend things and be involved in a volunteer program and that kind of thing, because the more towns you have, the less identity it is to any one of them. And it's a different dynamic, and not a bad one, it's just different. And it's a lot more work, I think, whereas when the academy was the center of those little villages around there, that was sort of all there was, so that's where you went for things.
And it says Freedom Academy cannot be easily surpassed a country village where all the citizens are united.
Yeah.
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 Instead of all the districts that we have.
It took some doing to get this district formed as far as towns blending, because we were always in competition with each other in sports. Freedom Academy in Brooks, Freedom Academy in Unity, there was always competition there.
Oh, yeah.
And the townspeople fed on that. You became a unit to support your
freedom.
team. And then all of a sudden, they had to mesh it all together.
Yeah.
It's quite a challenge. I've
What
run
else
out
would
of
you
things.
like to hear?
Why did the Freedom Fest start?
Freedom Fest.
That's my
Winterfest. It's called Winterfest.
The
It's
winter-
not- yeah, Winterfest. It started as a community building project of the Historical Society, and it started before I came back, actually. You remember they had several up in Prentice Grassie's place?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
That was
Yeah.
before I even was here, and it was an attempt to get the community together during the winter. It never was a fundraising thing, really, and it isn't now at all. We lose money, but it's to build community and to. We decided to start it up again about 4 years ago, I think, and it was to focus on some of the older traditions, like the community skating together, skiing together, snowshoeing together, cutting ice together even, and we've expanded it some, and the town rec is in on it now so that they provide the refreshments. But it's community building. It's to have an activity where community can come together, all ages, and learn a little bit about some of the traditions. And we always hire a team of draft horses to give sleigh rides. That's some kids have never ridden in a sleigh before, driven by horses. And
I think one of the big things is the ice cutting. To help children or young adults even understand how you refrigerated your food way back when, you know?
Yeah.
And I can remember my grandmother having an ice block delivered for
Yeah.
her ice chest. And I know Viola's father, my father, in their
Yeah.
earlier years,
Yeah.
used to go and cut ice.
Cut
And
ice.
Viola's father had a ice shed. You packed the ice with sawdust and
Yeah.
kept it for quite a while.
yeah, there still is an ice shed down, across from the Lost Kitchen. The house that lives across the street used to be Bryant's.
Yeah.
There's still one of those little buildings is a ice house. Was a ice house.
Yeah.
Still is there. It's not used for that, of course, but was there.
Yeah. We
Yeah.
had one.
We still have the built-in refrigeration unit in our farm.
Yeah.
And out in the shed, there's the whole ice chest.
Ice chest.
And
And it would still be operable.
oh yeah, it could be
Yeah,
operable. Yeah,
sure.
yeah. There's a sliding door on the outside of the building. My father said Sunday morning that was his job, was to get a new block of ice in there. That would last for the whole week. But so it was to connect with some of those old traditions and that, as well as just the community being together to do something fun. Yeah. And that the part of Winterfest that used to be was the Freedom Follies. I don't think we've gotten into that at all, but that's a local talent show. We haven't had it for
We
2
haven't
years
had it
now.
For quite a while, yeah.
But that was going again while I was away, of local people getting together during the winter and having a talent show. And the last one we had was very successful, but COVID sort of put a
Yeah.
crimp in that. So
Yeah, it was a lot of wild local talent.
yeah, coming out of the woodwork.
Yeah.
It was. Yeah.
One guy said, couldn't think what I would do, but I got my guitar and waded out from where he lived was on a back road and not plowed, and he's waded out through the snow. And he said all I could think of was the coyotes hollering. And so he got to the Grange Hall with his guitar, and that's what he did. He hollered like a coyote. What a noise came out of him.
Yeah.
Full moon, he said. As he walked out, he heard them.
Well, it's at this point in history, it's a big challenge for your generations to, like, The Grange as an association right now is down to almost nothing. It's
Yeah.
hard to survive. The Historical Society is a very small group, and it's up to your generations to pick up and to connect with some of these things if it's going to be preserved. And because the culture has changed so much electronically, technologically, that I love the fact that that we can connect with your media project here, and I hope that the programming we can do at Keene Hall, once we get it set up, we intend to have high-level computer access there, and that can continue, and especially combining the generations and to teach, because there's a lot of value to that, a lot of values. Some of the values are lost, and some of them are new, and that's good. They're always going to be changing.
That's right.
But I think it's going to give you and your lives deeper roots and more meaning and clearer values, as much as you can connect with people like us to share, what's been important in our lives and what's made it work and what brings happiness and wholeness. So really appreciate all you're doing.